Genshin Impact just finished having one of the best live streams in its history, with version 5.7 looking really solid. We have, of course, new Archon quests, new character stories for Skirk, and also a bunch of optimizations for not only character farming with a pseudo-new endgame mode, but also artifact rerolling. So, let us get right into it. First of all, the voice actors for Skirk, Dahlia, and Mavuika did a really good job in English. They were mildly funny for me, which means they were probably very funny for most people. We're just gonna watch it and then I will go over the characters.
Nodcry, an ever-changing landscape of ruin, a marvel corroded by time. In the forest, where the nights were once undisturbed save for a few rays of moonlight, the wild hunt's shadow grows. There are those who bear the name of Frostmoon, living where the silver light shines. Others carry the torch, fending off the darkness and cold with their blades. I hear that the Snow-Land Fae still yearn for the frosts of old, while the Fatui look to the stars above, trying in vain to seize the false firmament. Then there are the knights, draped in the west wind, nearing the end of a long and arduous mission. My friends, of course, shan't be outdone. They will no doubt bring a magical charm to this edge of the world. And just as the stone craves the sculptor's hand, so does fate await your gaze. Pour me another cup of tea, if you'd be so kind. The story is about to begin.
So, as you guys can imagine, this is very promising and looks really good. I believe the person narrating the trailer is Nicole. Should be Nicole, one of the witches of the Hexen Circle, from not only her voice, but also the way she talks about her friends while showing Alice, and also the teacup, her signature teacup. She had what I presume is some form of advanced Seelie, or something unto or akin to a Monitou, which we see in Natlan, which is Natlan's equivalent of a Seelie or filler of a Seelie. Alice, to me, is precisely what I expected.
Be outdone.
She is literally Big Herta, the Herta from Honkai Impact 3rd, except Klee-coded. I have zero complaints for Alice's design, because how can I complain when HoYoverse, here's what HoYoverse did. They took Alice from my brain, and then they copy-pasted the character into the game. I have nothing to say. Alice and Xianyun are the two characters that came out in terms of their design precisely as I expected them. Therefore, there is nothing for me to complain about. This is pretty much what I thought Alice would look like, and she looks exactly like that. Not just with her t-shirt, but also even the ribbon bow tie she has on her neck. So yeah, cool character design, looks pretty good. And we finally get our first in-game look into the environment of Snezhnaya, since we have to keep in mind that Nodkrai is an autonomous region of Snezhnaya, so it's still part of Snezhnaya. We can see a stronghold to the right of the screen. I'm not sure if this is part of the Lightkeepers or belongs to the Lightkeepers, but regardless, that's their structures. Now, we have the moon over here, and at first, the moon starts out looking blue, which is what it normally looks like on Tevat, blue/white, and then it slowly transitions into this purple hue. Of course, the purple here is supposed to indicate the abyss, if I have to take a guess, because
a changing landscape of ruin, a marvel corroded by time.
You can look right here, they pan directly after the moon into the monsters of the abyss, or at least abyssal corrupted humans. Now, at first when I saw the moon, I thought this was going to be the eternal moon, since, well, Raiden is Electro, Raiden is purple, the eternal moon should be connected to Raiden, since Raiden is the god of eternity. However, after thinking about it for a bit, this is probably just a artistic choice, since the moon is overshadowing the abyssal monsters, and this is supposed to represent, like, the abyssal corruption in the land. Also, the eternal moon is destroyed, therefore there is no reason for it to appear physically in-game. Regardless, though, I am sure in Nodecry we are going to learn about both the Frost Moon and the Eternal Moon, and also the Iridescent Moon as well. Moving on, we have the Frost Moon Scions, symbolized by the stag and the deer. This is my personal favorite faction. I've already made a video talking about how cool it is and glazing the artistic design and thematic design of this faction. I am looking forward to their playable characters, also learning about their moon goddess, who should be the Frost Moon herself. That would be very cool.
Those who bear the name of Frost Moon, living where the silver light...
Now that I think about it, Nodecry does not have an... well, they do have an Archon. Their Archon is the Tsaritsa. Once again, Nodecry is part of Snezhnaya. It's an autonomously governed region. But the patch itself, I'm talking about the version cycle. The version cycle, for the first time ever, we do not have an Archon or an Archon equivalent. In Mondstadt, we of course had Venti, then we had Zhongli in Liyue, then we had Beelzebul, Raiden in Inazuma, after that Nahida, and then we had both Neuvillette and Furina. These are like the marketing Archon equivalents. If we are talking lore-wise, it's going to be Neuvillette. He is the lore equivalent of an Archon for the region of Fontaine. And if we are talking marketing-wise, Furina is the marketing equivalent of an Archon, but keep in mind she's just a human. She's not like a god whatsoever. And in Natlan, we had the Pyro Archon Mavuika. This is expected. So Nodecry is going to be the first patch cycle, version cycle, where we do not have an Archon being released in the game, or even expecting an Archon. So we do not know who is going to fulfill that role. Because once again, in Fontaine, Neuvillette fulfills the role of an Archon, and then in terms of marketing, we have Furina. But in Nodecry, we are going to need some kind of character to fulfill that role. And when I look at the Frost Moon Scions, I immediately think of their moon goddess, the Frost Moon. Therefore, I believe we might get the Frost Moon herself, assuming, well, that Tsaritsa might be related to her. However, I imagine that Tsaritsa is possibly one of the Fae, the Snowland Fae, we're gonna get to them, who were created by the White Tsar. She might be one of those, since Focalor was the familiar of Egeria, and Focalor was one of her Oceanids, so it could be the same case with well, I was gonna say Bronya, with the Tsaritsa, and she's probably Bronya, with the Tsaritsa and the White Tsar. Regardless, the Archon equivalent in Nodecry is likely the Frost Moon herself, the goddess of the Frost Moon Scions. I imagine we are also going to get at least one playable Frost Moon Scion character, in addition to the Frost Moon Goddess. After thinking about this process and rationalizing it in my head, my excitement for this faction has increased by tenfold. But do keep in mind that this is all just like effectively a development and game design theory that I just made right now. So don't let my predictions and expectations influence you too much. Remember, HoYoverse never confirmed that we will have an Archon equivalent. I assume it is going to be the Frost Moon of the Frost Moon Scions, since she is their goddess.
Light shines. Others carry the torch.
This faction also looks really badass, man. The Lightkeepers look really, really cool. I am assuming we are also going to be getting a few playable characters from this faction. We can see their Grandmaster, by the way. There she is.
Fending off the
Do you see her? Is this a man or no? This is a woman. We can see her chest. So this should be their Grandmaster right in the middle. She is holding one of the 3 torches. Either that or she is just a high-ranking official from the Lightkeepers. I don't know if she will be playable or if it's going to be one of her subordinates or one of her men. Regardless, though, I am looking forward for these characters as well. I want at least 2 of them to be playable. We are probably going to end up getting only 1, but their lore is very interesting. They are connected to the Tsaritsa, of course. They are connected to the White Tsar, who predates the Tsaritsa, her predecessor. And they have a bunch of historical heroes mentioned in one of the artifact sets, the Plunge one.
Darkness and cold with their blades. I hear that the Snowland Fae still yearn for the frost.
So before watching this reveal, the Snowland Fae were my number 2 most anticipated faction after the Frost Moon Scions. However, this did not reduce how excited I am for the Snowland Fae. The problem is, what am I even supposed to say here? We've got a naked elf girl. she's probably gonna look pretty because they have to market her and sell her. That's about it, really. There is nothing for me to say. I can't add anything. Naked elf girl, very cool. So the Snowland Fae, in my opinion, like I said earlier, they seem that Tsaritsa might be one of them, and she quite possibly might have been one of the familiars of the White Tsar. I've seen some people say she was his wife. I am not too sure about that, purely because HoYoverse refuses for the most part to release any characters that are either married or part of relationships. If someone has a kid, they are either single or they adopted the kid. I wouldn't, bro, if Alice adopted Klee, I am actually going to morb. Alice might be the only married character we ever get, and her husband might be dead, we will see. But yeah, regardless, the Tsaritsa could be one of the Snowland Fae. Otherwise, the only other option in my mind is that she is related to the Frost Moon. When I say related to the Frost Moon, this could be either an incarnation of the Frost Moon, a fragment of the Frost Moon, or perhaps even an angel that used to serve the Frost Moon and somehow survived the angel curse. This could explain why the Tsaritsa, who used to have love in her heart, had to harden her heart in order to remove that love so that she could avoid the curse of the Seelies and continue ruling her people and achieving her objective of overthrowing Celestia. Is she a Snowland Fae? Is she a Seelie, an angel? Is she a fragment of the Frost Moon? We will see. In my opinion right now, I am leaning mostly towards her being one of the Snowland Fae, a familiar of the White Tsar.
The Fatui looked to the stars above, trying in vain to seize the false.
So these are all the new Fatui enemies. I don't really have much to add about them. They look cool, that's it.
Firmament.
And we have Zandiq. Finally, since Sumeru, we have Dottore returning into the main story. This is unsurprising, it is completely expected, since Mavuika teased the return of Dottore at the end of the Incandescent Ode of Resurrection Archon quest. Therefore, seeing him in Nodekrai is pretty much what we have all been expecting, and we have also had extenuous and external sources also teasing the return of Zandiq into the main storyline. I honestly wonder if he is going to be the final boss of Nodekrai. He is the second Fatui Harbinger. The Traveler had a lot of trouble fighting number 4, which is Arlecchino. Dottore should be stronger than both Arlecchino and Colombina. Now, I know he destroyed most of his clones, which should theoretically, logically reduce his power, but Dottore might have, just by pure intelligence and pure wits, he might have other ways to circumvent this downside and still emerge as one of the most powerful Harbingers amongst the Fatui. If you ask me, do I want Dottore to be the final boss of Nodekrai or the Nodekrai patch cycle, I would probably say no, because I hope, only because I am biased and I hope Dottore will be more important later down the line. I don't want him to get killed or die in Nodekrai. Now, of course, he could be the final boss of Nodekrai and still live on like Tartaglia and the Scaramouche. They did not get killed. However, him losing in Nodekrai could potentially take away some of his aura. I don't want that to happen yet. I want him to keep going until the end of the story. I am hoping Dottore will end up becoming one of the biggest players later down the line, since he started out as a normal human, and having this normal human, even though he is evil and maniacal, reach the very end of the very end game of the story with Celestia and Dainsleif and the Traveler and all of that stuff and the Abyss Order. Having Dottore be a player amongst those guys is something I am hoping for. There is a very, very, very high chance that he will actually be the final boss of Nodekrai. If that happens, he might still end up being important later down the line, but he could also potentially get either killed or sidelined. Of course, there is always the chance that he might become playable. This is not out of the picture whatsoever, and if he becomes playable, that is cool. I like Dottore.
Then there are the knights, draped in the west wind, nearing the end of a long...
So this is cool. We see Varka along with some of his elite knights. Remember, Varka, when he left Mondstadt, he took the most elite knights alongside him, with a few exceptions like Jean and Kaya. Varka is an Aventurine variant. If you guys don't know who Aventurine is, he is a member of the IPC from Honkai Star Rail, and Varka is essentially going to be Aventurine, but really buff and really big, I think, from this picture, because if you look, Varka seems bigger than the rest of the male knights behind him. We can see like one male knight behind Varka, and then we have Varka in the front. He seems at least bigger than the male knight. but this is a very rough artwork sketch of the Knights of Favonius, so we have to take it with a grain of salt. We cannot assume that this artwork is designed with the intention of having it be proportionally accurate to the dimensions of the characters in the game itself. However, I am still coping. I hope Varka is a big buff guy, and yeah, he is most likely going to be an Aventurine XP. Aventurine is a really cool character. He's one of the IPC's 10 Stonehearts, and a very big player in both Penacony and most likely later down the line in future worlds. Potentially he might return briefly in Amphorius, we'll see.
An arduous mission. My friends, of course, shan't be outdone.
And of course we have Alice. I talked about her at the start of this video. Now in terms of Hex and Circle witches, so far the one I am looking forward to the most is Barbeleth Tris Megistus. She is really funny. My hope is that Barbeleth doesn't end up a hot young chick. I want them to make her an old lady, an old mage. Of course, this doesn't mean she has to walk on a cane and have like a broken back. She can look like a refined old mage. They can make it look good. Genshin has enough hot chicks. I am sure the marketing team can find a way to sell a refined old mage who is really cool and knows a bunch of Conry and alchemy stuff and is also one of the most powerful diviners in the entirety of Tivat. People will buy it. She does not need to look fuckable, guys. Oh, and before I move on, when I say that Nodikrai does not have an Archon equivalent, one of the Hex and Circle witches might actually be the Archon equivalent. It might not be the Frost Moon herself. It could be a Hex and Circle witch. Since these ladies are pretty strong and they are quite popular amongst the player base, therefore HoYoverse could get away by using them as the Archon equivalent. Whether that is Alice, Nicole, maybe Barbeleth, we will see.
Just as the stone craves the sculptor's hand, so does fate await your gaze.
But yeah, these are like really big character reveals. If you guys think about it, we have the Light Keepers, we have Varka, we have Hex and Circle Witches, we've got potentially the Frost Moon Goddess. Like this is a very stacked roster. And we have to keep in mind that we still got Durin in the mix. He's gonna be one of the characters of that cycle, I assume, because Albedo just brought back Durin, so logic dictates he will be released sometime in version 6.x.
Pour me another cup of tea, if you'd be so kind. The story is about to begin.
I'm afraid some people might assume that this Seelie-looking thing, which might be a Seelie, but you never know since the Monitus look like Seelies but are not. Regardless, I'm afraid some people might think this Seelie-looking thing is Nicole. I highly doubt that, guys. This Seelie thing might just be like a little Ika, who is the familiar or the companion of Hyacinth and Star Rail. This thing might just be the companion of Nicole, and she runs around with her. If Nicole becomes playable, I'm probably going to get her because she seems really cool, and having this Seelie creature along with her is going to be a very nice addition. You have to keep in mind that Nicole appears to be a Seelie. If you go to Imaginarium Theater and talk to Wolfie, he tells you a story about an angel who, instead of giving up her love, she gave up her tongue, her ability to speak. And this angel is implied to be Nicole. So Nicole might be an angel who, instead of getting the curse, forsook her ability to speak. And this is a big deal for Seelies, by the way, because angels are creatures of music and song. Like, singing is a big part of who they were and their identity. So this might have been a very big deal for her. Based on the appearance of this white creature over here that is probably a Seelie, she has some ties to angels. Overall, Nodikrai and version 5.7 moving forward in general seems like is going to be Genshin's absolute peak. And this should continue hopefully into Snezhnaya, into Khaenri'ah, and finally into Celestia. Genshin has entered the era of its endgame, and the developers are starting to cook, as you can see by the fire around Lumine. Lumine is going to be our first meal, and she is going to taste really nice. Let me turn on the subtitles, hold on. So when they say the birth of a savior, and they have savior capitalized, guys, keep in mind this, This is very messianic language. When I say messianic, I'm talking about the savior in terms of like Jesus Christ. And in this case, in the case of Genshin, it should be like the Traveler twins, Aether and Lumine. They kind of fulfill this role. There are a bunch of characters who fulfill this messianic role, but Aether and Lumine are two of the major ones. Oh yeah, and we are also going to learn about the Loom of Fate and finally understand exactly what it does. This is confirmed later down the line by both Mavuika and Skirk's voice actors, which is going to be cool. We saw the prototype of the Loom of Fate with Caribert in Bedtime Story, and now we are going to get all of the answers, hopefully all of the answers, like it's about time. The game is almost over. We should get all of the answers to what the Abyss Order are trying to do with the Loom of Fate. Oh, and if Ochtanatlan was not already peak enough, we are returning into Ochtanatlan once again, this absolutely peak region, to do another Archon quest. This is cool. We can see an Abyss Baptist, and the Abyss Baptist is surrounded by a bunch of Abyss Lectors, since of course the Baptist is a higher rank than most of the Lectors. Now, we did fight a Baptist-like figure in the form of Jacob, who was the leader of the Narses and Croix Ordo. However, these guys should be far more dangerous than Jacob, since they are part of the Abyss Order, which is way larger than the Narses and Croix Ordo. Also, notice what Paimon says here. She says, the spaceship, the one that brought you to Tevat. At first, I thought she was talking about the Traveler. However, she is most likely talking about a Skirk, and the Skirk might be an alien. Not a descender, but an alien in a similar vein to the all-devouring Narwhal. Because the all-devouring Narwhal is called the Visitor from Beyond the Sea of Stars, which is a title that Ptahur, that's the name of the Narwhal, shares with Aether and Lumine. However, Aether and Lumine are not just aliens, they are aliens with a will that rivals the world, and therefore they are descenders. Not everything that descends is not everything that comes from above is a descender, as René de Petrichor, who is Jacob's friend and the master of the Narses and Croix Ordo, the god that they used to worship, he claimed that not everything which comes from beyond Tevat is a descender, and his claim is of course correct. Not everything that comes from beyond Tevat is going to be a descender, only those who have a will to rival the world, which probably means a will to equal or surpass that of the Dragon King Nibelung. Because Nibelung was the original will that ruled the Light Realm before it was transformed into Tevat by the Primordial One, the first Descender.
この数ヶ月の間で42の星が消えた。何者かがずうずうしくもこの世界から吸い取っているのだ。
災いはいつか必ず訪れる。みんなもそう言ってるわ。
彼女の存在を無視し続けたらいつか本当に彼女の声が聞こえなくなってしまうからね。
すぐそこにいるじゃない。
お前の魂は欠けていて、傷口にはアビスに侵食された跡が見られる。アビスの力の使い方を学ぶつもりもないのなら、私が代わりに調べるしかない。
Skirk's theme is really cool.
無に着せ。この手に。
Oh yeah, this detail is important. The developers, or sorry, technically the developers, the voice actors who get their script and get what they say from the developers, confirmed that Skirk is not actually Cryo. What she does is she uses abyssal power, but she camouflages that power in the form of Cryo to look like Cryo and to behave like a Cryo, which is a very telling detail for what her seven-shifting serpent is and how the abyss interacts and behaves with the elements of Tevat. This is a very important detail. Keep in mind, the Skirk is not actually Cryo. She controls the abyss and camouflages it to look like a Cryo. And behave, this is important. It also mimics the behavior. Which, if you think about it, mimicking the behavior of an element is on par with what the Abyss does and what we have seen it do so far in Genshin. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, Dahlia is gonna be dog shit, I don't care about him. Well, do I wanna rant? You know what, I'm gonna rant very quickly. I don't know why HoYoverse releases these types of characters who are like completely ass and useless. There is no universe where you are going to use Dahlia over Yelan and Furina. Why? Because if you are not using one of the two, then you are using Xingqiu. So why would you ever use Dahlia? All he does is give you a shield, potentially 20% attack from Noblesse, and 20% attack speed. That's all we got at C0 from the live stream. So what is this character supposed to do? He's not going to replace Yelan. He's not going to replace Furina. He's definitely not replacing Escoffier, Lemao, so he has no purpose. If you're going to remove Furina or Yelan and use them in another team, you can just replace one of the two with Xingqiu for Skirk. Skirk is going to be a good character, by the way. She has a lot of team options. You've got Kokomi, you've got Yelan, Xingqiu, Furina, Escoffier, of course, is a staple. Skirk, okay, Skirk needs Escoffier, keep this in mind. If you are going to play Skirk, you better have Escoffier, otherwise she's not going to perform that well. So when it comes to Dahlia, this is a very sad character. I was hoping for him to at least be on par with options like Yelan and Furina. Not better, of course, but like on par. Be an option, an alternative. He's not even that. He's nowhere near being an alternative to Xingqiu, who is the alternative of Furina and Yelan. That's how bad Dahlia is, which is quite sad. Oh yeah, and there's also Candace. I'm pretty sure Candace is going to be better for Skirk than Dahlia is. Dude, this character is so cooked. Dahlia is so cooked. Like he has basically all the competition in the world and they are all way better than him. Except maybe at C6, I don't know what his constellations do because the developers did not talk about them in the live stream. We will see when he comes out, maybe with constellations he becomes like a decent option for Skirk. I can't imagine his constellations are that insane, but we'll see when he comes out. And regarding what I said earlier about a Skirk utilizing the Abyss and camouflaging her power in the form of Cryo, Skirk in combat, this is a very cool thing about her. Now, I don't think I'm gonna get Skirk, even though I have Escoffier. I'm probably gonna save for Nodecrai. Nodecrai's roster is way too stacked for me to waste pulls on Skirk, which is insane to say if you think about it. Imagine telling a player, yo guys, I am skipping Skirk. Imagine telling a player in a version like 1.x or 2.x, guys, I am skipping Skirk because I am saving for the Lightkeepers and Varka and Alice. Their mind would be blown. That is insane to say. She is going to utilize a new type of reaction that is unique to her, and it is called, I believe, Void Serpent, where while she is attacking, she generates a bunch of void drifts, and then those void drifts buff her kit. This is a cool little mechanic that Skirk has, and it fits her design in my opinion, because you have to keep in mind that Skirk does not utilize the normal elements of Tevat. She uses Abyssal Power and masks it to look like and behave like the Cryo element. But in reality, it is logically expected for Skirk to actually have a unique type of reaction to her, or a unique mechanic, kinda similar to what Nilu has, but a little bit more flavorful. This girl is Condrian, you can tell from her eye, and well, also she has Intevat flowers. I think she has Intevat flowers on her hair, maybe? They are certainly low quality ones though. They didn't have enough polygons, I guess. I am assuming this woman is either, well, she could be immortal since Condrians are immortal, but I am very suspicious, guys. Here's the thing. Why is she not insane like Clothar? Because if she is immortal, and from what we have seen from Clothar, she should have gone insane at this point due to having lived way too long. And the brains of normal mortals cannot handle that, with like the exceptions of Dottore, who modified his body and stuff like that. So why did she not go insane if she is immortal? And if she is alive, because it seems like she's some kind of memory creature, like Memoria creature, or some kind of Hilitrol, it's very weird. I am suspicious of this character. I'm not sure what is her deal, but that is probably one of the mysteries that we will uncover in the Archon quest itself. However, Conrian NPC, very cool. We love to see it. I have a feeling some people are gonna look at this and think this guy's Surtaloji. This is not. This is one of the shadows that we see inside the narwhal. Hopefully no one thinks this is Surtaloji himself. That would suck. So if I have to guess what they are doing with this guy, at the end of the Fontaine Archon quest, the Masquerade of the Guilty, when Skirk shows up in order to imprison the all-devouring narwhal, she tells the Nouvellette and the Traveler that she could have dealt with the narwhal on her own, and as a matter of fact, it was her mission and duty to look after the narwhal and deal with it. So if Nouvellette and the Traveler were not around, Skirk herself would have dealt with the pet of her master Surtaloji the Foul by defeating the narwhal. We did not get to actually see her do it. So in this patch, in order to market her and sell her, they are going to shill Skirk by showing us that she can indeed fight the shadow of the narwhal, and she can indeed solo it and defeat it on her own. This is the logic when I think about it from the perspective of the developers when they are making the story quest and trying to design it in such a way as to incentivize players to pay money and pull for the character, stuff like that.
お前が鈍性のクジラの剣能を持っている。
Yeah, so when they say Surtaloji here, I really think some people are gonna say, holy shit, this is Surtaloji. It's not. This is an insane shadow who likely wants to see Surtaloji, and instead of seeing Surtaloji, he found Skirk, and Skirk is gonna kick his ass.
経緯など当の昔に消え去った貴様の傲慢さと邪悪さに気づいた時にな
500年前にお兄ちゃんと再会する機会を逃すわけにはいかないから。
Hold on, I saw something. Hold on, chotto matte, guys, chotto matte. This video is already very long, but I've got a few things to say. But why is this energy inside the capsule similar to what Dottore has on his ears? Very sus. This is very, very sus indeed. Now, of course, it is surrounded by abyssal energy. However, this is Lumine using the abyss in order to control it. That's all. Like to hold the thing lifted.
お兄ちゃんと再会する機会を逃すわけにはいかないから。
いずれ本物の宇宙に帰るだろう。
Actually, hold on. I think I know what's going on with the Conrian girl. Oh my god. I see. Let me tell you.
いた時にな
500年前にお兄ちゃんと再会す
This capsule might be related to the Loom of Fate, like some kind of control mechanism. And Lumine over here, she is showing the Traveler what this Conrian girl went through during the final moments of her life. I think this is what's going on. She is trying to radicalize Ether. This is so funny. So I think I solved the... Hopefully I'm not correct because I don't want to like ruin the reveal of the story. Hopefully I am wrong, but it seems like Lumine is radicalizing the Ether, her brother, or like the other way around. Of course, if you play Lumine, then it would be Ether, but you get what I'm saying. The Abyss sibling is radicalizing their twin, the Traveler, by showing them the final moments of this girl, and then the Traveler is gonna be like, holy shit, this waifu died a terrible death. Screw the heavenly principles. Damn you, heavenly principles. And this is when the Traveler starts becoming more in favor of the Abyss Order. Dude, imagine if the Loom of Fate was designed in order to bring Ether to the side of Lumine in the Abyss Order. Holy shit.
る機会を
Of course, it probably has a bunch of other functions, but this is a funny thought I just had while watching this video with you guys.
逃すわけにはいかないから。
いずれ本物の宇宙
So yeah, we can see the capsule in action over here. It looks like this is controlling the Loom of Fate, and the girl is either like a memory creature that is seeped from the Loom of Fate as the Abyss Order is trying to reweave the fate of Tevat with the Loom, or she is, again, like I said earlier, a human from Canria whom the Abyss sibling, Lumine in this case, is using to radicalize the Traveler. And of course, we can see the Sustainer's cubes in Canria. This is during the era when the Cataclysm was ripe, so the Sustainer is likely going to be in the area along with a few other gods, like maybe Morax, Barbetos. We know Baal was there for sure, Makoto. We might get to see Morax in his Archon attire, and we might also, in addition to Morax, get to see the Sustainer, because, you know, her cubes are around, so logic dictates she should be in close proximity.
宇宙に帰るだろう。
旅の終点だ。
But do you guys see how much of a stacked patch this is? Also, yeah, I'm like, at this point, guys, I am 99% sure. Like, look at this frame. Look at this frame. I am 99% sure this is the Loom of Fate in action. You can see the blue primal light. This is Memoria energy. or memory energy. I say Memoria because I keep using Star Rail lingo. For those of you who might not know what Memoria is, it's effectively just memory energy from the world of Penacony and the Star Rail universe. Amun al-Ahmar, the god of the desert, lord of the red sand, he uses primal light, which appears to be a type of Memoria energy in his constructs, and primal light is also the type of energy that seeps from the divine nails of Celestia. Therefore, I'm just going to call it primal light because this is the more familiar term for most Genshin players. This primal light is, of course, the type of energy that the Loom of Fate controls, which makes sense since you have raw elemental energy. And I also should mention very briefly that phlogiston, which is part of Tevat's energy mechanisms, is also present in Star Rail. Phlogiston exists in Star Rail, so if a phlogiston exists in Star Rail, then vice versa, the Memoria energy of Star Rail can exist also in Genshin, because Genshin is most likely part of Star Rail, let's face it. I know people don't want to admit that, but this is more or less where the direction of the game is going. I'm gonna talk about it towards the end of this video. So Memoria energy in Star Rail might just be primal light in Genshin, that's it. The last thing I want to add before I end this video is the Archon equivalent of Nodkrai is, as I said at the very start, is either going to be a Hex and Circle Witch, or it is going to be the Frost Moon Goddess. I hope it's the Frost Moon Goddess. The Hex and Circle Witches can just be normal character releases, that's fine. I mean, Archons are technically normal character releases, they are just normal characters. There isn't anything special about them beyond their lore status. And if I'm being completely honest, the witches are too overhyped in Genshin. I don't know why people think they are omnipowerful. However, when I look into Twitter is a complete shithole. People on Twitter don't know left from right. But when I look at some discussions over there, I see players thinking that the Hex and Circle Witches are like on par with the Primordial one, which is insane. There is no way that is possible. The Heavenly Principles is one of the strongest characters, if not the strongest character in all of Genshin Impact. And Phanis, the Primordial one, is likely more powerful than most Emanators in Star Rail, at least the ones we have seen so far in-game. The Primordial one, if you ask me, is probably a super emanator. Now, what do you mean by a super emanator? Essentially, it's what you would expect. It is a very, very powerful emanator that is above normal emanators but below an Aeon. This is what I think Phanis is. I'm gonna expand on it later. It's not in my upcoming lore theory, in my upcoming lore video. It will be in the one after it, which I hope will be up by the time of version 5.7's maintenance. But you guys have to keep in mind, the Heavenly Principles, Phanis, he did not just defeat Nibelung at base, he defeated Nibelung, who came back with the power of the Abyss. And from the way Kukulkan was talking, the Primordial one, Phanis, Kukulkan says Phanis obliterated Nibelung, which just speaks to the level of power, the tier of power that Phanis is in, where he was able to obliterate Nibelung for the second and final time in order to ensure that the Dragon King never returns. It was Nibelung imbued with the power of the Abyss, so Phanis being able to surpass that tier speaks volumes to how powerful that guy is, or that god is. I imagine we are going to have a few hints about the nature and power of Phanis from the greatest hero, Phynon of Ides Elysia over in Amphorius. We will see what happens, we will see. I assume that Phynon is going to give us a few hints about the Primordial one, you know, like a little bit of parallels, a little bit of metaphors, a little bit of shared game mechanics, maybe even shared design, wink wink, HoYoverse, come on please. All in all, Hex and Circle Witches are very cool, but let's not overrate them way too much. Like saying they are on par with the Primordial one is crazy. At the end of the day, Reindotter is one of them, and she devoured a shade, and somehow Dainsleif is going to kill her by the end of the story. Well, actually, hold on, no, let's stop. We don't know if he is going to kill her, but we know this is his objective right now. He is looking to do that. And Dainsleif is, well, he seems like the final boss of the game from the Tevat Travail chapter. Anyway, thank you all for watching my analysis of version 5.7's livestream. I am very excited for the patch. This is, well, Genshin has been cooking lately. I imagine we might be getting the Mer Jivari since that was teased with the Sitlali event. That's going to be about it from me for now. Thank you all for watching, and a huge thanks to all of my Patreon members. I've been My Name for now, and I will catch you in the next time. Take care.